Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergok, your host, and today I will take a look at why there are simply no good characters in Overlord, and why this is actually a good thing. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, and say my thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And now with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. Overlord, unlike many other anime and light novels, not only features a myriad of well-written side characters, but also makes it abundantly clear that these characters are not merely different in their worldview, perspectives, and motivations, rendering them multi-faced and quite unique. But moreover, in Overlord, there are simply no truly good characters. And by good I mean it in the sense that the story does not initially portray the character, mostly the hero or protagonist of the story, as morally upright, and presenting all their actions as acceptable or as the best possible decision given the circumstances. Certainly, even good characters in other stories can make mistakes, but these mistakes, their flaws, are usually just they are being too trusting and honest, and somebody else is now going to take advantage of that. And these good characters in other anime are also very generic. They always strive to help other people, they are harboring no hatred or contempt even for their enemies, and generally, they remain very passive concerning their own wishes, dreams, and ideals. Overlord, however, subverts these conventions entirely. In the story, there are of course characters who simply perceive themselves as good and act accordingly, all in alignment with their own worldview. But yet, there's always an undertone suggesting that this is simply just their perspective, and that their own perspective might not be entirely correct. In Overlord, things are different, and perspectives are simply that, glimpses into the worldview of others. Also, each of us has done something that from our perspective, or at least the social standpoint, may not have been deemed acceptable. In the real world, there are no morally pristine and virtuous characters, because, there's not even a unified definition of good and righteous, against which everyone can be measured. Overlord is actually aware of all of this. So instead of passing judgment and portraying characters as either good or bad, the narrative presents characters, their thoughts and actions in a non-prejudiced manner, no matter how good or bad these actions and their characters are from our own perspective, so that we can draw our own conclusions. In most stories, especially in anime and unsightly appearance, also typically aligns with a rather unpleasant character, to put it mildly. This is evident, for instance, in characters like Darius Ganius from Mushoku Tensei, the goblins from Goblin Slayer, or simply any character in certain mature animations marked with the letters N, T, and R. However, Overlord takes a different approach. Prince Zanek is small and big at the same time, and he stands in stark contrast to Prince Barbro, who is tall and handsome. Under normal circumstances, Barbro would have been portrayed as just the better and more statesman-like ruler, yet in Overlord, the dynamic is reversed. Zanek engages in plots and intrigues, prepares to wage war for his claim to the throne, if necessary. And he knows what he does is not viewed as right by others, but at the same time he sees it as simply a necessity, something to be used as kind of an instrument, not only in order to secure the throne, but also in order to be a good ruler. However, in contrast to Prince Barbro, Zanek also regards this position of king not as merely a privilege, but also as a duty. So in a seemingly hopeless situation, he fought to the bitter end for his kingdom, dying as a true ruler, with a sword in hand. And in contrast, his brother, Crown Prince Barbaro, fled from a goblin army, way less powerful than whatever Einsulgon was putting against the Kingdom of Rhea's ties. And he also met a pitiful demise under certain Lupus Regna Beta related circumstances. Even someone who considers themselves absolutely good and morally righteous, namely Remedios Custodio, is so fixated on their own moral and worldview that without hesitation she would sacrifice an entire army and an entire population she originally wanted to liberate from the yoke of literal demons and beast folk and goat people, because of her own sense of righteousness, just to avoid breaking her moral codex. And if it were different, if she had accepted that through her continued attack, innocent lives might be harmed, she wouldn't still be fully good, but simply the best person as the circumstances would allow her to be. And this is another crucial point of Overlord. Sometimes in life, there are simply no ideal solutions, no correct, morally righteous path to take, no matter how hard one tries, or what one does. Instead, there are only several different shades of bad, or rather, suboptimal and grey. For example, regardless of how one approaches it, during an attack of an entire city, innocent lives will always be lost, even through one's own army. This ruthless and unrelenting reality is something that Remedios, who grew up in peaceful times, finds, let's put it, uncomfortable and distressing. So she simply decided to ignore reality, which, in my book, makes her also a bad person, despite what she thinks about herself. And of course she treats Nia like basically almost as bad as Einsulgon, and even Kalka Besaris, the virtuous Holy Queen of the Holy Kingdom, tolerates, at the very least, the intrigues and machinations of Kilard Custodio, Remedios' sister, because Kalka knows that they are necessary to stay on the throne, and that she, staying on the throne, is a necessity, doing good things in accordance with her own morals and beliefs. So everybody has broken rules somewhere, and Overlord's story ruthlessly reminds us of this fact. However, it does not judge or condemn the characters for their actions, it merely presents them neutrally, as a kind of observer, allowing us to form our own understanding of the situation. Overlord's story also consistently depicts the situation in which the characters find themselves, allowing us to empathize with them and question how we might have acted in their own place. Even people who in parts of the community are considered to be nothing but poor, innocent victims who have fallen into undeserved trouble, are in reality neither poor nor innocent, because they too have done evil acts. Or in plain terms, I'm talking of course about Ashe and her tragic death. And after her death, some Overlord fans held Ashe up as some sort of innocent girl who had done nothing wrong, even though Ashe was working as a black market mercenary, as a so-called worker. And as the term implies, she and her team did everything for money that other mercenaries and adventurers would not do, because it's illegal. They also had no qualms about collaborating with organized crime, if necessary. And if, contrary to the expectation, the Grey Tomb of Nazarick had been inhabited by a few people, perhaps war orphans who lost their parents and grew up as poachers and outlaws in that desolated tomb, then Ashe, Robert Dyke, Irmina, and Hitran would likely have had to eliminate those people to get to the gold and the other loot, or at the very least forcibly take their possession and then kick them out. And if they were competitors trying to plunder Nazarick too, perhaps hired by other nobles from the Kingdom of Rhea's ties or elsewhere, then Team Foresight would likely have eliminated them without asking too many or even any questions, and Ashe, Let's not forget that she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, and her parents still had a mansion and numerous valuable items. If they had sold their mansion and some of their property, which they couldn't pay for anymore anyway, instead out of sheer pride trying to maintain their lifestyle, everything would have been fine. But instead they sold off their own daughters instead of adjusting to a normal life with regular work. They could have rented out their house to generate income and sold some of their valuables to buy Ashe proper equipment so she could legally earn money as an adventurer. They could just have supported her. Or they could have simply swallowed their pride and explained to Fluda Paradane that their daughter could no longer afford the tuition fees. Ashe was talented and had the same ability to perceive magical aptitude as Fluda Paradane himself, and therefore he would have readily allowed her to pursue her studies and financially support her and perhaps her parents. So Ashe embarked on a criminal career and threw the money into the mouths of her parents, who were not only ungrateful for all of this, but they downright were mad at her and scolded her, and ultimately sold her sisters to pay off debt. So, even Ashe was not a good and innocent character. And for that matter, even Climb is not a good character either, but a fanatic, some sort of non-religious zealot who believes that Rennar, who ultimately had betrayed her country, would not be capable of doing anything evil, because he's simply too naive and trusting. However, as mentioned, Overlord also makes it clear why the characters act the way they do. If we were in Ashe's, Climb's or Zenek's situation, what would we have done? How would we have reacted? This perspective that Overlord provides allows us to understand the characters' problems and decisions from their own point of view, and thus all of this just enables us to develop a lot of empathy for them. Yes, Ashe was not an innocent girl, but it was still tragic to see how Ashe, who was one job away from leaving her old life of being an illegal black market mercenary behind to take care of her own two little sisters, ultimately had to die. It hurts to see how Climb chases after Rennar, so trusting and naive, and to see that all of his virtuousness and his belief is ultimately misplaced. And of course it hurts to read about Zenek's fate, how he was betrayed by his own countrymen. Overlord understands very well how to make us feel for the characters and find them sympathetic, despite their mistakes and their views. And ultimately this complexity and this certain sense of tragedy in the whole story also gives it a certain realism, simply because life does not move in ideal lanes. And most people make very severe mistakes and misjudgments and act out of their own moral codex and out of their own limited worldview without questioning anything. And this is quite relatable and something that we know from everyday life, albeit from a more subdued and mild perspective. And therefore, we can very well relate to the general story of Overlord and its many fantastic side characters. But as always, this is just my opinion, so what is yours? Let me know down in the comment section. And while you type, let me quickly say thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to Arder Daddy Arder, ASK, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Hat, Hector Marino, Hoss, Haster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch Britannia Wiffy Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Loverazor, Mervek, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, O'Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Q&A Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rocket Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Xenokai, and Zonegon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon under my next video.